Now, to understand those actions in the backcountry, though, we need to first understand Patrick Ferguson's personality. What is driving those actions? And the first key personality trait that we need to understand is his eagerness to prove himself. This starts from the very beginning of his life. Just listen to his family pedigree. His father is a laird in Aberdeenshire, Scotland. He is Lord Pitfor. His mother, Anne Murray, is the daughter of Lord Elibank. His siblings, his older brother, is a member of Parliament for 30 years. His younger brother, George, is a royal governor in Tobago. And his uncle, Major General James Murray, is one of 3 brigadier generals under Wolfe in the campaign during the 7 Years' War to take back the city of Quebec from the French. That famous moment in British military history, the Battle of the Plains of Abraham. He is commanding there, his uncle James Murray. From a pretty early age, Ferguson is destined for the military. His uncle James Murray actually writes to his mother, "You must no longer look upon him as your son. He is the son of Mars and will be unworthy of his father if he does not give proof of contempt of pain and danger." If that doesn't push eagerness to prove yourself, I don't know what does. But in his military service, in his military career, again and again, that personality trait emerges. Most prominently first, in his development of a breech-loading rifle. He improves the design of the Chalmette rifle and what we today call the Ferguson rifle. Now, he develops this during a period of convalescence, and he demonstrates it for King George III and top British military officials. And he's so impressive with his demonstration where he's lying on his back and it's raining and windy and he still manages to hit the target. He's convincing enough with this weapon that the British top brass authorize the production of 100 of these rifles. And he's allowed to recruit men to train on how to use this weapon. He fights with it at the Battle of Brandywine in September of 1777, but unfortunately he's wounded in that battle, and those rifles go into storage, and his unit is disbanded into other light infantry units. But the development of that weapon shows that eagerness to prove. His actions in 1778 at Little Egg Harbor once again show that eagerness to prove. It's October 1778 is his first action after he's coming back from convalescing from his injury at the Battle of Brandywine. He and 300 provincial troops and some British troops as well cut a 20-mile swath of destruction at Little Egg Harbor along the river there. They're destroying storehouses, they're destroying salt works, people's homes as well. When Ferguson finds out that Count Casimir Pulaski and his regiment of horse and foot are camped just a short distance away, he rose under cover of darkness in the wee hours of the morning and attacks 3 homes where American infantry are sleeping. His troops attack with the bayonet, and between 50 and 250 of these American infantrymen are killed by these British soldiers and provincial soldiers with bayonets. And what Ferguson says is that since it was a night attack, no quarter was given often because it was hard to see and hard to tell what was going on, so they only took 5 prisoners. This kind of action, though, had already been praised by British officials when another British officer just a short time before had done the same kind of thing. So he's doing it because he's seen it's earned praise and earned accolades. Now, during that same period and up until 1780, he develops a friendship with Sir Henry Clinton, the British commander-in-chief in North America. And he writes a series of letters to Henry Clinton that show, again, that eagerness to prove himself. He writes recommendations for how he thinks the war should be fought, what the British Army should be doing, what actions should be taken against the rebels, how the war should be fought. And these letters showed that scorched earth policy that he displayed at Little Egg Harbor. But the British never adopt it. They're not looking to go on a campaign of destruction against the colonies. What they're hoping ultimately is to reconcile with the colonies. So his recommendations are not adopted, but they are useful in showing that personality trait again. Now, when the British decide to launch the Southern Campaign, he is promoted in 1779. Ferguson is promoted in 1779 to a major in Fraser's Highlanders. And when the British sail south, he goes with Clinton south, sailing south. In May of 1780, he is promoted to Inspector of Militia in the South. To say that this is a tough job is an understatement. He is responsible for recruiting, equipping, and training loyalist militia in the southern provinces. Now, these are militia that have been defeated and humiliated time and again by their counterparts, their patriot counterparts. He's having to come up against very strong patriot leaders, capable patriot leaders. And he is not in Cornwallis's inner circle. Clinton leaves and goes back to New York and leaves Cornwallis in charge in the South. And Ferguson is not a part of his inner circle. So he's at a disadvantage. And Cornwallis is not eager that Ferguson has received this assignment. Connected with that, we see in the comments of his fellow British officers in the South that they recognize in Ferguson that eagerness to please that may end up getting him in trouble. And I'll read from some of those letters that go back and forth. From Nisbet Balfour, who was the commander at 96 at the time, he wrote to Cornwallis in June of 1780, "Ferguson had great matters in view, and I find it impossible to trust him out of my sight. He seems to me to want to carry the war into North Carolina himself at once." And on August 29th, 1780, Cornwallis writes to Sir Henry Clinton, "Ferguson is to move into Tryon County with some militia whom he says he is sure he can depend upon for doing their duty and fighting well. But I am sorry to say that his own experience, as well as that of every other officer, is totally against him." Now, the second personality trait that is driving his actions in the backcountry is his grit and determination. Ferguson is a tough man. He's been in the military since he was 15. He knows hardship and he knows how to deal with it. Again and again, he overcomes illness and injury throughout his military career. During the 7 Years' War he's fighting in Germany as a 15-year-old, he falls ill. And for 6 years, he has to convalesce at home from 1762 to 1768. But his family purchases another commission for him to serve where his brother is in Tobago, where his brother is the royal governor. And he puts down a pretty notable slave insurrection there, falls ill to a debilitating fever, has to come back home in 1774 and recuperate once again and convalesce again. But when the British launched their campaign against the colonies in North America in 1776, he's once again involved in that. When he fights with his Ferguson Rifle Corps at the Battle of Brandywine, his his right arm is shattered by an American rifle ball. He completely loses the use of his right arm. But he teaches himself how to write with his left hand, how to fight with a sword, and how to fire a weapon. That grit and determination is carrying him through again. When the British invade South Carolina and they're pushing into the mainland at Monk's Corner, he is involved in an incident of friendly fire, and his good arm, his left arm, is injured by a bayonet to where he can't use that arm for a while. He is forced to grip his reins in his teeth, but that doesn't stop him. Now, he is also determined to succeed with his militia. They don't call him the bulldog for nothing. He knows it's a difficult task, but he is determined that his militia will succeed. He will prove himself. He spends hours in the summer of 1780 training his militia how to fight more in the traditional style, drilling and marching. He wears a silver whistle around his neck, and that's how he directs his troops. That's how he gives orders. Now, he does run into some difficulty with the nature of militia, and he actually wrote in a letter to Cornwallis in July of 1780, there is great difficulty in bringing the militia under any kind of regularity. I am exerting myself to effect it without disgusting them, and on the whole, not with effect. So, the same thing that the Continental Army complains about with militia, the British Army is complaining as well. They're finding the same kind of traits in militia. And one of Ferguson's militia commanders, Major Zachariah Gibbs, actually writes his own letter to Cornwallis complaining about Ferguson's training. Since I received your lordship's orders for that purpose, the summer has been little else but marching and countermarching. Never 2 days calm space to mind our farms or any domestic comfort. Now, these personality traits feed into his actions in the backcountry.